What happens when a global pop star walks onto one of Britain's most beloved morning shows and turns a simple interview into absolute chaos? In just 34 seconds, a casual question would ignite a meltdown so intense that security would be called to the studio floor. This is the story of how Jesy Nelson's appearance on This Morning became one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. The morning started like any other. Allison Hammond sat behind the famous This Morning desk, her warm smile radiating the kind of energy that had made her a national treasure. She shuffled her note cards, glancing at the questions prepared for the next guest. Standard stuff, career updates, new projects, maybe some light banter about life after leaving Little Mix. Nothing controversial, nothing that should cause problems. Jesy Nelson walked onto the set wearing dark sunglasses despite being indoors. She didn't wave to the audience. She didn't smile. She simply sat down, crossed her arms, and stared straight ahead. Allison, ever the professional, kept her energy bright. Jesy, welcome to This Morning. It's so lovely to have you here. We're so excited to chat with you today. Silence. Jesy adjusted her sunglasses but said nothing. She didn't even look in Allison's direction. The audience clapped politely, but the energy felt strange, forced. Something was already wrong. Allison continued, her smile never wavering. How are you feeling today? It's a beautiful morning out there. Still nothing. Jesy examined her nails like she was alone in the room. Okay, Allison laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood. A woman of mystery. I love it. Well, let's dive in then. So, you've been working on some exciting new music. Can you tell us what fans can expect? Jesy's head snapped up. I'll talk about what I want to talk about, she said flatly. The temperature in the studio dropped 10 degrees. Allison blinked, momentarily caught off guard, but recovered quickly. The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful banter they were used to. Allison, sensing the tension, tried a different approach. Of course. Well, what would you like to talk about today? Jesy leaned back in her chair. I don't know. You're the host. Aren't you supposed to make this interesting? A few gasps rippled through the audience. This was live television, national television, and a guest was being openly hostile to one of Britain's most beloved presenters. Allison felt her chest tighten, but she kept her composure. She had dealt with difficult guests before. She could handle this. Well, I think you're plenty interesting all on your own, Allison said warmly. Your fans certainly think so. We've had so many people writing in asking about you. Have you? Jesy said sarcastically. How sweet. The sarcasm was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Allison glanced at her producer off camera, who gave her an encouraging nod. Keep going. You've got this. Allison's smile tightened slightly, but she pressed on. This was live television. There was no going back now. All right, let's talk about your journey then. You've been through quite a lot in the public eye over the past few years. How are you doing these days? Really? Truly? How are you? How am I doing? Jesy repeated, her voice dripping with condescension. That's your question? That's what you came up with? How am I doing? Well, yes, Allison said gently, maintaining her warmth despite the ice coming from across the desk. Our viewers care about you. They want to know you're okay. They want to know you're taking care of yourself. Your viewers don't know me, Jesy snapped. Nobody knows me. And honestly, I'm tired of people like you pretending you care when you don't. A woman in the front row of the audience covered her mouth in shock. This was getting uncomfortable fast. Allison placed her hands flat on the desk, grounding herself. Jesy, I understand you might be feeling defensive right now, but I can assure you, I do care. Everyone here cares. We wouldn't have invited you if we didn't genuinely want to hear from you. Right, Jesy said, rolling her eyes behind her sunglasses. You care so much. Is that why you booked me? Because you care? Or because you wanted ratings? The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Allison felt the sting of it, but refused to take the bait. The air in the studio went cold. Allison's co-workers behind the cameras exchanged worried glances. This was spiraling fast. Allison took a breath, her voice still warm despite the hostility. Jesy, I do care. Everyone here cares. We just want to have a nice conversation with you. A nice conversation? Jesy laughed bitterly. Right. Is that before or after you ask me about the girls? Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? That's what everyone wants to know. Poor little Jesy. What happened with little Mix? Let's pick at that wound some more. Allison shook her head slowly. Actually, I wasn't planning to go there at all. I know that's a sensitive topic, but if you want to talk about it, we can. This is your interview. You get to decide what we discuss. I don't want to talk about anything with you, Jesy said coldly. Then why are you here? The question came out before Allison could stop it. Not aggressive, just genuinely confused. Excuse me? Jessy's voice went dangerously quiet. The audience was dead silent now. You could hear every breath, every uncomfortable shuffle in the seats. Even the camera operators had stopped moving, frozen in the awkwardness of the moment. Allison maintained her composure, but her eyes showed the hurt, the confusion, the genuine pain of being attacked for trying to do her job. Okay, Allison said softly, her voice thick with emotion she was trying to hide. I understand you might be having a difficult day. We all have those, but I'm just trying to do my job here. I'm trying to give you a respectful platform to share whatever you want to share with people who actually do care about you. A platform? Jesy stood up slightly, her voice rising with each word. You think you're doing me a favor? You think I should be grateful? I don't need your platform. I don't need this show. I don't need any of this circus. Then why did you agree to come? Allison asked, her tone still respectful, but firmer now. There was steel underneath the kindness, a boundary being drawn. Because my management said I had to, Jesy shouted, and now people in the audience were visibly recoiling. Because apparently, I need to smile and play nice for people like you, who make money off asking invasive questions and pretending to be my friend. Jesy, Allison said, standing up now too, leaning forward with both hands on the desk. I haven't asked you a single invasive question. Not one. I've been nothing but respectful to you since you sat down in that chair. I've given you every opportunity to have a pleasant conversation. Respectful? Jessy's laugh was harsh and mocking. You want to talk about respect? Where was the respect when every tabloid in this country was writing lies about my personal life? Where was the respect when people like you gave those stories airtime and let people tear me apart? I never did that, Allison said firmly. I have never spoken about your personal business on this show or anywhere else. You're upset, and I understand that. But I'm not the enemy here. Everyone's the enemy, Jesy shouted. All of you. Sitting there with your fake smiles and your scripted questions, pretending you're not just vultures picking at my life. The producers were frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but Allison held up her hand. She wasn't going to let this end without trying one more time. Jesy, please, sit down. Let's take a breath and start over. Start over? Jesy laughed harshly. There's nothing to start over. This whole thing is a joke. You're a joke. This show is a joke. Those words hung in the air like poison. Allison's face, usually so full of joy and light, went still. The hurt was visible now, clear as day. I'm sorry you feel that way, Allison said quietly, but I won't let you speak to me like that. I've been kind to you. I've been patient, and I don't deserve to be called names on my own show. Your show? Jesy mocked. Please. You're just a placeholder. They could get anyone to sit in that chair and read off cards. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Some people started booing. Allison held up her hand to quiet them. "That's enough," Allison said, her voice steady but authoritative. "I've tried to be understanding. I've tried to give you space to express yourself, but you've crossed a line." "What are you going to do about it?" Jesy challenged, standing up fully now. "Kick me off? Go ahead. I want to leave anyway." "If that's what you want, then yes," Allison said, standing as well. "I'm asking you to leave." "You can't kick me off," Jesy said, her voice incredulous. "Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," Allison replied. "And right now, you're someone who's being disrespectful to me, to this crew, and to everyone watching. So yes, I'm asking you to leave my set." "Make me," Jesy said, crossing her arms defiantly. Allison didn't hesitate. She looked directly at the camera, then back at Jesy. "Security, can you please escort our guest out?" The audience erupted. Some cheered, some gasped, some sat in stunned silence. Jessy's face went red. "Are you serious right now?" Jesy yelled. "You're actually calling security on me?" "You've made it clear you don't want to be here," Allison said calmly. "I'm helping you get what you want." 2 security guards appeared from the wings. They approached carefully, professionally. "Don't touch me!" Jesy screamed, backing away. "Don't you dare touch me!" "Ma'am, we're not going to touch you," one of the guards said gently. "We're just going to walk you out." "This is insane!" Jesy shouted, looking around wildly. "You're all insane! This is assault! This is discrimination!" "It's neither of those things," Allison said firmly. "You agreed to come on this show. You were rude and disrespectful, and now you're being asked to leave. That's not assault. That's consequences." "Consequences?" Jesy laughed maniacally. "You have no idea what consequences are. Wait until my lawyers hear about this. Wait until social media hears about this. You're done. This show is done." "Jesy," Allison said, and her voice was softer now, almost sad. "I genuinely hope you get the help you need. I hope you find peace, but you cannot treat people this way." "I don't need help from you," Jesy screamed. "I don't need anything from you." The security guards gently gestured toward the exit. Jesy looked at them, then at Allison, then at the audience. Her hands were shaking. "Fine," she spat. "Fine. I'm leaving. But this isn't over." "Yes, it is," Allison said quietly. "It's over." Jesy ripped off her microphone, threw it on the floor, and stormed toward the exit. But she stopped halfway, turning back one more time. "You think you're so perfect," she hissed at Allison. "You think everyone loves you. But they don't. They just tolerate you." The audience booed loudly. Allison stood completely still, her face composed, but her eyes glistening slightly. "Goodbye, Jesy," Allison said. Jesy opened her mouth to say something else, but one of the security guards gently touched her elbow. "Ma'am, it's time to go." "Get off me!" Jesy yanked her arm away and marched toward the exit. Before disappearing through the door, she turned one final time. "You'll regret this," she screamed. "All of you will regret this." And then she was gone. The studio sat in absolute silence. Allison stood at the desk, her hands gripping the edge. She looked at the audience, then at the camera, and took a deep breath. "Well," she said, and her voice cracked just slightly. "That was unexpected." The audience erupted in applause. They stood, clapping and cheering for Allison. Some were wiping tears from their eyes. Others were shaking their heads in disbelief. Allison held up her hands, trying to calm them down. Please sit down. We still have a show to do." But the applause continued. It grew louder. People were shouting words of support. "We love you, Allison. You did the right thing. You're amazing." Allison's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back, trying to maintain her composure. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Finally, the audience settled. Allison took her seat again, straightening her papers with shaking hands. "I want to apologize to everyone watching at home," she began. "That's not the kind of energy we like to have on this morning. This is a show about positivity, about community, about lifting people up." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "But I also want to say this. Kindness doesn't mean being a doormat. Being professional doesn't mean accepting abuse. And having empathy for someone's struggles doesn't mean letting them disrespect you." The audience applauded again, more gently this time. "I tried," Allison continued, her voice stronger now. "I really tried to make that interview work. I tried to be understanding. I tried to give her space to be herself. But there's a line. And when someone crosses that line, you have to stand up for yourself." More applause. "So yes, I asked her to leave, and I'd do it again. Because this show, this studio, this space, it's built on respect. Mutual respect. And without that, we have nothing." Someone in the audience shouted, "You tell them, Allison." Allison smiled, a real smile this time. "Thank you. Honestly, thank you all. Your support means everything." She looked down at her notes, then back up at the camera. "We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a wonderful segment about rescue dogs finding their forever homes. And I promise, it'll be much more pleasant than what you just witnessed." The audience laughed, the tension finally breaking. "Stay with us," Allison said warmly. "And remember, be kind to each other. Life's too short for anything else." The cameras cut, and Allison let out a long, shaky breath. Her co-host rushed over, wrapping her in a hug. "Are you okay?" they asked. "I am now," Allison said. "That was intense." "You handled it perfectly," her co-host said. "Absolutely perfectly." Behind the scenes, producers were already dealing with the fallout. Phones were ringing off the hook. Social media was exploding. Everyone had an opinion about what had just happened. But on the studio floor, Allison sat quietly, centering herself. She had done what she needed to do. She had stood her ground. She had protected her space and her dignity. The floor manager counted down. Back in 5, 4, 3. Allison straightened her shoulders, fixed her smile, and looked into the camera. The show went on. Because that's what Allison Hammond does. No matter what chaos erupts around her, no matter what drama unfolds, she shows up. She does her job. She treats people with respect, and she expects the same in return. The interview had started as a routine booking, a pop star promoting new music. Simple, easy, standard. Instead, it became a masterclass in maintaining dignity under pressure. It became a moment that would be replayed and discussed for weeks. It became a line in the sand about what behavior is acceptable and what isn't. Jesy Nelson had walked onto that stage with an attitude. She had come in defensive, hostile, ready for a fight. Maybe she had her reasons. Maybe she was dealing with things nobody could see. Maybe the pressure of fame had finally gotten to her. But Allison Hammond had given her every opportunity to turn it around, every chance to start fresh, every possible way to make the interview work. And when those opportunities were thrown back in her face with insults and disrespect, Allison made the only choice she could make. She chose herself. She chose her team. She chose the standards of her show. And in doing so, she sent a message that resonated far beyond that studio. A message about boundaries, about self-respect, about not accepting mistreatment just because someone is famous or struggling or having a bad day. The rescue dog segment went beautifully. The audience, still buzzing from the earlier drama, embraced the sweetness of watching puppies find homes. Allison's natural warmth returned, filling the studio with the energy it was known for. But everyone knew what the real story of the day was. In the green room, Jesy's abandoned coffee cup still sat on the table. Her chair was pushed back at an angle, evidence of her abrupt departure. The makeup artist who had worked on her earlier looked at the mess and shook her head. "I knew something was off," she whispered to a colleague. "She barely said 2 words while I was working. Just sat there, stone-faced, angry about everything." "Did she say why?" the colleague asked. "Nope, just complained. About the lights, about the temperature, about the questions she hadn't even been asked yet. I tried to be friendly, but it was like talking to a wall." On stage, Allison laughed at something the dog trainer said. Her laugh was genuine, full of joy. You would never know that 20 minutes earlier, she had been screamed at and insulted on live television. That was her gift. The ability to move forward, to not let someone else's negativity poison her spirit, to choose happiness even when someone had tried to steal it from her. The show wrapped. Allison hugged her co-host, thanked the crew, and headed to her dressing room. Once the door closed behind her, she finally let herself feel the weight of what had happened. She sat down heavily in her chair and stared at her reflection. Her eyes were tired. Her smile was gone. The armor she wore for the cameras fell away. There was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," she called. Her producer entered, looking concerned. "How are you really doing?" Allison sighed. "I'm okay. Just processing." "You were incredible out there. The way you handled that. The grace you showed even while standing your ground. It was phenomenal." "I didn't want to kick her off," Allison admitted. "I really didn't. I kept hoping she would just calm down and we could have a normal conversation." "You gave her every chance," the producer assured her. "More chances than most people would have given. But she kept pushing." "Why do you think she was so angry?" Allison wondered aloud. "What did I do to her? I've never even met her before today." "You didn't do anything," the producer said firmly. "Sometimes people are just carrying so much pain that they lash out at whoever's in front of them. It's not about you. It was never about you." Allison nodded slowly. "I know, but it still hurts, you know? To be treated like that for no reason. Of course it hurts. You're human." "But you didn't let that hurt make you cruel. You stayed kind even while being firm. That's the difference between you and her." Outside the studio, news vans were already gathering. Word had spread fast. Video clips from the live broadcast were being shared thousands of times per minute. Everyone had something to say. Most of the reaction was supportive of Allison. People praised her patience, her professionalism, her willingness to finally draw a line. They called her a queen. They called her a legend. They called her everything she deserved to be called. But there were others, those who defended Jesy, who said Allison should have been more understanding, who claimed kicking someone off a show was too harsh, who believed fame came with the right to act however you wanted. Allison didn't read any of it. She had learned long ago that social media was a double-edged sword. For every person who loved you, there was someone else ready to tear you down. Instead, she sat in her dressing room, drinking tea, letting herself decompress. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends and colleagues, all of them supportive, all of them proud. One message stood out. It was from another television presenter, someone who had been in the industry for decades. "What you did today was necessary," it read. "You showed every young person watching that they don't have to accept being treated poorly. You showed every host that standing up for yourself doesn't make you unprofessional. You did the right thing. Hold your head high." Allison smiled, tears pricking her eyes again. She typed back a simple, "Thank you." Back on the now empty studio floor, cleaning crews were resetting for tomorrow's show. They swept up the broken pieces of Jesy's microphone. They straightened the chairs. They erased all physical evidence of what had happened. But the memory would remain, in the minds of everyone who had been there, in the hearts of everyone who had watched, in the culture of what was acceptable and what wasn't. One of the cameramen paused in his work, looking at Allison's empty chair. "She really is something special, isn't she?" he said to his colleague. "Allison? Absolutely. Salt of the earth, that one. The way she handled that situation, I don't think I could have kept my cool like that. That's why she's the star, and we're behind the cameras," his colleague laughed. "She's got something most people don't. Real grace under pressure." They continued their work, the studio slowly returning to its usual state of readiness. Tomorrow, there would be new guests, new interviews, new moments. The show would go on, as it always did. But today's show, today's moment, would be remembered for a very long time. As the last person left the building and the lights went dark, the This Morning studio sat quiet, waiting, ready for whatever drama or joy or chaos tomorrow would bring. And Allison Hammond, national treasure, would be back in that chair, smiling, warm, professional, but a little bit stronger than she was before. Because sometimes the hardest moments teach us the most important lessons. And today's lesson was simple, but powerful. Never let anyone dim your light, not even for 34 seconds.